If everyone will please take their seat.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The next subject on the agenda is award of bid number 12 TAC 046, TAC 2012 Street Reconstruction Project. The recommendation is that City Council award a contract for the construction of the 2012 Street Reconstruction Project to Roads, Inc. of Northwest Florida of Pensacola, Florida, the lowest and best responsible bidder in the base bid amount of $324,710 plus a 10% contingency.
Move the approval. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second.
Sorry.
Council? Audience? Please.
Hand up.
Oh, okay.
I'll just throw something to the middle of the room.
Don't
Thank you,
do
Mr.
that.
Vice President. I have a question for the city attorney on this. I have some concerns about the Florida State Statute 112.313, number 7, portion of that, conflicting employment or contractual relationships, and how the mayor can be an ownership interest in Redfish Harbor LLC with Mr. Cody Rawson, the owner of Roads, Inc., and enter into contract with him.
Thank you, Councilwoman DeWeese. Now, I'm not sure what your question is, so I want you to ask it again, because I don't have any information on the mayor's business interests. So if you're asking me to give an opinion on that, I would have to take it under advisement. I mean, I just don't know.
I think it's important that we know this was not disclosed on a financial disclosure during his campaign. I have not gotten the 2011 form, but it really is a question in general because we would have to abide by it as council members, and it would be assumed that the mayor would also, as a public official, have to abide by it. So I can send you my specific question asking for clarification before Thursday's meeting. Sure. Because obviously we can't enter into contract with someone if this is in fact the case. And then my other concern is, well, there's several things, and I think Mr. Taylor is here to speak to it as well. He put a great amount of time into going around and looking at these proposed reconstruction projects, and that the mayor's address on Osceola was not part of the original RFP. It was added at a very late date as an addendum. And I'll leave all the details that you went and found to you. I don't want to steal your thunder on that, but I am concerned about that being added at a late date, and then also the 10% contingency. So I don't know if you would like a supplemental motion at this time, a substitute motion, or if I just make a friendly amendment. But I think we need to discuss, because part of it would be that addendum be removed at this time, and that we remove the 10% contingency, and any adjustment to this be brought back to council. So I'm just putting that out there. I won't make the motion at this time, but I would like the opportunity to speak again. Thank you.
Yeah, let us go on with the conversation before we have another motion. Mr. Reynolds, you say something?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Derek Owens is here to address any perceived issues about Osceola and some of the issues that have been there in the past, and why we're now bringing this forward. We can either do it before or after, Mr. Taylor. It's up to council.
Why don't, if it's agreeable with the council, can Mr. Derek Owens come up and cite specifically the add-on, et cetera, Osceola, and then if there are any other questions, he can respond to those at a later date. Derek.
Yeah. Mr. President, members of the committee, Osceola was not an add-on. It was an add-on to the plan set due to some logistical issues we had with design on Osceola. But Osceola was in the FY12 budget for some reconstruction due to some flooding issues we have at the end, at the north end of the street, associated with a few property owners there. It's been ongoing for a long time. We've had complaints over several years about some issues there. There's no curb. It's a substandard street. It's no curb and gutter. And that's why it was put on the list for the FY12 budget. So it was not an add-on in the sense of it was just added on to the budget-wise. So it would have been bumped to 13 if we would not have been able to resolve the technical and logistical issues with the street design.
Okay. Councilwoman Pratt.
These are probably questions that Mr. Owens can answer. The FY 2012 budget, I believe we had about $500,000 budgeted for street reconstruction. I'm guessing that the decrease in that budget is due to the reduction in gas tax income. But there were 9 streets on that list, and I was just wondering how what the ranking process was to get to only 6. And then he just mentioned the curb and gutter issue. Is street reconstruction not just taking it from what it is to back to what it is but smoother, but it's including gutters and getting rid of any culverts that might be a problem for people moving trash cans and things like that? Thank you. Sorry, I
Please.
should be looking at
I'll go ahead and address the first part of your question, Councilwoman Pratt. The street reconstruction, well, the list, okay, originally Avery and 10th Avenue were on that. 10th Avenue was a dead-end street, okay, and we had a petition of residents that lived there that said, they came to us, they said, there's no traffic on this street. We understand it's a substandard street. We don't want the improvements, okay? So we honored that request because it is a dead-end street, not a through street, okay? Avery is near Baptist Hospital. They are currently under permit doing improvements to the right-of-way on their own dime. And also I think the west end of that, the county currently has a project going on right there. Okay, so we didn't find it feasible to go in there to do construction on top of 2 other entities that are currently doing improvements to that street. It'd been a waste of money. So, and on the second part of your question, street reconstruction is total reconstruction of the street. There's a lot of sometimes misconception between resurfacing and reconstruction. Reconstruction is a complete rip out and put back to standard, to today's engineering standards, what the street should be. It's put to a standard width, curb and gutter and sometimes we even put storm structures in to route the stormwater to a treatment area, stormwater management facility, etc.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Taylor?
I'd like to ask Mr.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Eric Owens.
Councilwoman Myers.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about Osceola Boulevard. I went over there and looked at that block, and it looks like it's recently been resurfaced. Is that correct?
I believe Public Works did resurface a portion of the street last year.
Okay, the whole block, that block looks like it's new, like it's been resurfaced recently. So what do you plan on doing? Do you plan on taking up all of that that asphalt and putting curb and gutter in? Because my experience has been when you put curb and gutter in, you take up the asphalt.
No, ma'am, we're not going to take up all the asphalt. What we're going to do is we're going to put curb and gutter on the northern end of the street so the water can be channelized to a current drainage easement that the city has on private property, okay? And then we'll do some overlay of the street to route a portion of the stormwater back to Bayview Park so it can go into a treatment facility for treatment.
Okay. Now, some of the street, one side of it has some curb and gutter
Yes,
already. Mm-hmm. So how much is that going to cost to do the reconstruction you're talking about?
Of course, we will not reconstruct the curb and gutter that's there. Okay, that will remain. Okay, what we'll do is we'll vary the thickness of the asphalt to channelize the water back to the park.
And how much is this project for this one block costing? How much is?
I don't have that specific breakdown, but I can get that to you.
Okay, I'd really like to know by Thursday, you know, how much that particular project will cost for that street.
I can offer you that on average, to bring a non-standard street to our current city standard runs about excuse me, about $50,000 per block to do that. And being that these improvements on Osceola are limited, it's not complete tear out and reconstruct, it'll be considerably less than that, but I can get you that exact number.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, did you want to speak on this?
Thank you, Councilman Townsend. What the engineer just said made a lot of sense. It was good to hear that Osceola has been on the list, because I was unaware of that, so that is good news. But I just want to, from a citizen's perspective, explain just briefly kind of what it looks like. And you know, I was raised that the appearance of evil can be evil, you know, and so it was just interesting to me that 15% of our city reconstruction for the whole year happened to be the mayor's block, and that just struck me awkward. So after lunch, I just swung by to take a look at it and noticed the same thing Ms. Myers did, and looked pretty good, looked fairly new. And so I went to look at the other ones. Yes, they were in bad shape. You saw some of the pictures, certainly justified. One of them was the wildlife rescue, you know, we read about during that June storm that flooded, and all the volunteer hours that went into repairing that. So certainly there's some very major need. The block right next to me on 11th Avenue around the park right there has no curb gutter. Papa Don Schroeder's son just bought the house there, and it floods, you know, every time that it rains there. My little 18-month-old loves to go through the puddles. But I mean, there's plenty of areas that need attention in our deal. So it just seemed to me that the mayor would put himself in there for that. But there's nothing wrong with that, but it did have that appearance. But then what really concerned me is I dug in. I went to West Florida Library where all the public records were for that. And even though I understand that it was on there, it was slid in there literally 7 days before the bid ended. And that, to me, just really jumps out weird. Not only is it the mayor's block, but then it's an 11th hour slide in after the contractors have been bidding on 5 jobs that were originally put out. And then here this last week, that goes in. So, you know, and then, you know, as I started looking at the notes, and matter of fact, the public records weren't even there for the mayor's street. So then I was really red flag. You know, I was like, man, the documents aren't even here at the public record deal. So I had to come to the city, meet with the engineer. He was very helpful, him and his staff, and looked at it. Another thing that jumped out at me that just, you know, just rubbed me the wrong way is there was a little note up in the corner. Wasn't on the other 5 jobs. There was a note on this one that says contractors can only work on this house between 8 a.m. in the morning and 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and that they should expedite that job. And I just don't understand why the 9 neighbors on Osceola get a priority over the other 19, 20 neighbors that are on those other streets. I didn't understand why. I guess they can work at midnight with lights out there. I don't know what the ordinance says on obviously 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, but there was just a lot of little things. And I understand that it's a skinnier street, and they also had a note in there that said they need to keep 1 lane open at all times, and that's probably what Mr. Owens is about to speak to. And you know, so yes, it does make sense. It is a little bit skinnier of a street, but that was part of a different note that already said, you know, to keep 1 lane open so that they can get access on the dead-end street. So it just had a lot of things, and I know you talked about earlier about form. Someone used the comment form and process, and a few things jumped out. One thing is in the ordinance, it blacks out the city council and anyone that's on the review committee for such projects like this. But especially now with the mayor-council form of government, it seems like it would be in the citizens' best interest to add the mayor and his office into that statute as well, so that it blacks out any conversation between vendors and the mayor and his office on a situation like that. You know, also, you know, last time I addressed you guys was on a Thursday night meeting, and it was about pro-business ideas, things we can do to help spur on business. I've done a lot of FEMA work, a lot of Army Corps work, and that kind of stuff. You know, anytime you slide in a project, a fairly substantial project with only 7 days left in the bid process when there's already been a month, I'm either going to bid really high, and I'm going to cost the taxpayers a lot more money to cover myself, because I haven't had time to really dig into it, you know, or I'm just not even going to bid. 3 of the people that came to the mandatory bidders meeting decided not to bid. Have no earthly idea if that had anything to do with it, but it was something that was interesting to note. 6 came to the mandatory meeting in August, and then out of those 3 out of those 6. I don't know if the taxpayers are paying more because the contractors couldn't research that, but then from a pro-business standpoint, don't do that to businesses. Don't slide something in there the last 7 days. So it may be good to do some standard operating procedures, and I have a ton of respect for Mr. Mayberger. I think he does an excellent job with the purchasing department. You know, and I went back through the whole 2012, just flipped through the different bids that come through. I never, in one of them, it only goes back to January, But in none of those did it show major amendments like this, major add-ons at a last minute. There were some little changes here and there, but nothing to this scope that this contract showed. So that there were just a lot of things that I think maybe it might be good to form some kind of pro-business committee that would just go through all these ordinances and really look at it and figure out ways that we can do to really roll the red carpet out to businesses. Another thing is businesses contractors especially, they'll either bid on real big jobs because they can make some money and that's their size deal, or they'll bid on smaller jobs because the bigger jobs are over their scope. When you add a project like this, that might have opened up the door to some other folks that would have liked to bid, but their cutoff date was a month before. So someone now said, oh, wow, $50,000 more on this job, I might be interested in that. But unfortunately, that contractor was unable to do that due to the last-minute slide in on that. So there's just a lot of red flags, a lot of issues that popped up through this process. The other thing that I noticed is currently you have to pay $50 to get a set of plans to even look at something. If I'm up there on my office on 9th Avenue and I'm going to bid for something on the city, I either got to go to the public library to look at the plans, or I've got to go and pay $50 here to see if it's even something I'm interested in, So I would think an ordinance or the standard operating procedures in this electronic digital age, why not put this stuff online, and make it easy for contractors to see what they're bidding on, say, yeah, this is something I like, or no, it's not have to spend $50 or go to the public library to check that out. So I would love to see some pro-business ideas come forward that we could present to you guys, present to Mr. Mayberger, and different ones to really help streamline this process. And this might be the most innocent thing in the world, in the Mayor's Street. We didn't read about it in the paper in June like we did Warrington Village and the other deal, but, who knows? We might should have sent the Red Cross out there to help them during the flood. I don't know. But it just has the appearance of wrongdoing. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
Thank you. Derek, you have some comments about, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to address a couple of Mr. Taylor's remarks there. As far as the special notes on the plans, every street in the city of Pensacola is different. If you look at different types of plan sets for different types of streets, we have different types of notes. The reason there are special notes on that street is because it's only 15 feet wide. Okay, 2 vehicles can barely negotiate safely to get past that. Once we get in there and start working on one side of it, then you've narrowed it down to one lane where it's very difficult for a vehicle to get through there. So we made stipulations on the plans that that one lane would be kept open on the plan because of the width. Also because of the nature of the construction, that the contractor would expedite getting in there, getting his work done, and getting out of there as quickly as possible, because you've all received complaints about street reconstruction, about storm sewer projects that we do, because it is disruptive. It is disruptive and it is an inconvenience, but when you look at the end product, it's well worth it. As far as looking at the plans, they're public documents. People come into the engineering department all the time, and they can freely and openly look at any plan sets we have. We have them come in all the time and look at it. They can look at it for hours if they want to, as long as we're open for business. If they want to leave with the plan set, they have to fairly purchase them. Okay? But they can come to the department, look at any job that we're advertising for bid that the city has, and decide whether or not they want to bid on the job. Okay? I think that was it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And thank goodness Mr. Owens is here to clarify and explain all the technicalities. And I do want to again thank Mr. Taylor for taking the time that you did to go look at this. You brought up a good point about the ordinance and with the no contact by bidders. And I'll bring that up under new business because it is appropriate. I believe that the mayor also be included in that as an elected official. And then also, what I had said before, I'd like to offer that this be approved subject to Mr. Messer addressing the statute. It's Florida Statute 112.313 as it relates to the mayor. And further, that's the end of my amendment to that. So I guess I need to stop and see if there is a second to that amendment.
Second.
And then I would like to discuss with council, because it brings up, and this is an operational issue because it is the purchasing guidelines of the city, and that's obviously an internal function. But part of that in this new form of government, I believe there's an issue for a contradiction here because the contracting officer of the city is the mayor. So if you have an issue like this where it's being proposed that the lowest and most responsible bidder is also a business partner of the mayor, there needs to be an avenue for someone else to make that recommendation and be the contracting officer in that case, whether it is someone internal on staff, if that's appropriate, or if it be the president of council. I don't know if you would cross from the executive to the legislative branch to actually do something like that. But I feel that there has to be a cure for that issue because we are a small town and we have business relationships with many people. We here on council have relationships with people, and we have to disclose whether there is a conflict or even bring it up if it's a perceived conflict. So I would like to address that as well, and I'll be bringing that up during new business. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman Maren.
Well, I have looked at that street, and I can certainly understand from looking at the street that it probably should be completed with curbs and gutters. It doesn't make sense to have curbs and gutters on part of the street and not the other. I mean, and I can see where there might be some flooding problems because of the slope of the street, especially down at the bottom of the hill. But it does bother me because Saturday I went to an event at Long Hollow Park, and I had to walk quite a distance to get there because of the parking. And the condition of the sidewalks is just incredible. And the curb cuts, the ones that are there, are put in illegally. My dog and I had to walk in the street, had to get off of the sidewalk, walk in the street because of all of the vegetation that is overgrown, covering the sidewalk, that is a barrier to even walking down an already bad sidewalk. When I look around that area particularly, and lots of neighborhoods on the west side and in the downtown area, and see the condition of the streets, I've seen things that are a lot worse than this. And my district, I've got 2 little cul-de-sacs that always flood, even with the slightest little rain, and the city came out and dug some trenches that's supposed to be relieving some of the flooding. And I just really have a problem with how this came about. And I'm not saying that the street doesn't need what you're saying it needs, Mr. Owen. And I just hope that, that we have our complete streets subcommittee up and running, and I'm hoping that maybe we can develop some policies to better prioritize our street reconstruction efforts. I will support this at this time. It doesn't appear to be a great deal of money. It does make sense at the little street. It's not that big. And I can understand the problems. It's a very narrow street. It's a difficult street to get in and out of. Unless you live there, you've got to get into somebody's driveway to get in and out of the street. And so I can understand that you probably need to do special things in terms of doing the work there. So I will support it, but I do want to see some changes, and I would invite Mr. Taylor. I would love to see your ideas for amending our ordinances. And so I just want to thank you for all of the hard work you did bringing this to our attention. And I look forward to working with you on addressing some of your issues that I think will improve.
Finished?
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, we have an amendment to that motion. What was that amendment? You want to cite it again now?
The recommendation as it stands, conditioned upon Mr. Messer addressing Florida Statute 112.313, Section 7, as it relates to Mayor Hayward.
And you'll have that Thursday night, I suspect. Okay. Any other business now? All in favor?
Aye.
Those- Okay.